Thank you very much, Ronan, for the invitation to come today. And in a way, when you kind of think of the centrality of names and place names as a foundation, I suppose, who are you? You know, that's the first thing you want to find out about somebody. Who are you? And then the traditional follow-up to that in Ireland is, well, where are you from? And both of these things have names to them. So they're very much a foundational part of what we're about. And I'd just like to link that into, I suppose, what Ronan and other speakers have said this morning is really the theme for this year's National Heritage Week. As Ronan has said, my own background is in historical geography, so I'm neither a historian, but I am a geographer. But I'm interested in that sense of the evolution of the landscape over time. And I've just last week or the previous week it was announced that we had been awarded some funding via new foundations and via the Heritage Council as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that project later on as well. And it's a project that I'm undertaking with one of my colleagues from Fiontar and Scoil na Gaeilge, Brian O'Rahilly. So Brian is bringing the linguistic and the technology side to it. I'm bringing that sort of landscape heritage side to our project. But what I'm going to say today maybe might give you a little bit of inspiration maybe for some ideas for perhaps events that you might have during Heritage Week, and also as perhaps also to kind of rekindle in your own mind some of your own memories of place names that you have, because we all have these minor place names. We all have this information within us. We don't have to go looking for it. We don't have to go to the book or Google or anything like that. We have it. So just to give you a little bit of sense of where the presentation's going, so you can keep an eye at what point we are, where we're moving along, I just want to say a little bit at the start about place names and place naming. And I then want to say a little bit about this as a process. I suppose the reason why names are important, the politics of names, the politics of naming, and also the fact that this is something that's contemporary, it's ongoing. We think of just across to the US, one of the very first things that Donald Trump did was to sign an executive order to create a new Gulf of America. So that sense of naming, it's not something that has happened in the past. It's something that's ongoing. It's something that's constantly happening. The other thing I want to say a little bit, of course, then is focusing on minor place names themselves as an integral part of our intangible cultural heritage. And then I want to conclude by saying a little bit about this project, the funding for which was announced last week. So I'm inspired very much by of the works of other historical geographers over time. And in particular, I'm drawn today upon work by Paddy Duffy, who was the Professor of Geography at Maynooth University. Many of you will perhaps know his book, the title of which is here on the screen, Exploring the History and Heritage of Irish Landscapes. So when Duffy is writing about naming, he talks about naming is a primary act of geographical appropriation. It's about taking control. It's about control. It's this demonstration, he writes, of control over nature, the landscape, and everything in it. Landscapes, he says, or names, he says, creates landscape. Unnamed places on maps are literally blank spaces. So these unnamed places are blank. There's a nothingness to those places. I suppose they're really empty spaces, you might think of them as. And I think when we think about our landscapes, we have to kind of think about that sort of range of processes that Duffy created and laid out in this diagram for us. This range of processes that go into making each of the places, each of the landscapes that we know, whether it's from the location, the environmental aspects, the economic processes that have been at play, down to those cultural ones where naming falls in with part of that cultural process, right down to all those ideological processes as well. So we have to consider all of these things together because they're each feeding and connecting off and from one another. So to focus in on this sense of names of places and naming places, which is a key aspect, I suppose, really in our past, in our heritage and the heritage of different places. Because, of course, knowing the name of a place was key to taking control of it. So the conquering and the conquest of Ireland in the past, historically, was underpinned by knowing what territory was being conquered. The maps that were created of that. I'm from Cavan, so this is a slightly Cavan-centric talk. So we've been to Kerry. ICANN hasn't reached Cavan yet, so this is bringing us that wee bit further north. So this map here that we're looking at, this is from 1609. This is the plantation map. This is created by the English surveyors coming to Cavan as part of that plantation, and they discover there that there's a shape to the landscape. The landscape is organised. These units of land holding are there, our townlands. They all have names. So there's a real shape and order to the landscape. But this is the first time they're mapped. This is the first time they're recorded. And these maps ultimately become what Willie Smith has called these maps of conquest and domination and so on. So maps, the names, because they're so intimately linked with land. Land is what, and the grants of land give power to the landowners. So it's very, very significant. So if we think a little bit about sort of the way in which names are changed over time as well. So we know about our sort of colonial history, the colonial naming of places, but also that kind of post-colonial reaction as well. So whether that's in terms of places, towns, street renaming, and so on as well. My own little home place in Cavan, this is the sign that comes into the village. So it's called Clover Hill. Clover Hill is an 18th century name given to it by the local landowning family. Its name in Irish, as you can see there, is Drumcashide, which means Cassidy's Ridge. So this relates to the Cassidys. The Cassidys were the Maguire's medicine people. This is very close to the border with County Fermanagh, just right on the border with County Fermanagh. So this is harping back to that connection between this land and the Cassidys. But yet we have this other name associated with it there as well. So this creation of new names and so on that we have. So names are important. They're there, and in the Irish context, they're very much established then by the 1830s in our sense of place names. So these maps here, these are again extracts from the Townland Index map on the left-hand side there. So again, here we see the names of places, we see our shapes, our boundaries to these townlands, which again is a whole other talk there. And then on the left or the right-hand side, I've just taken a little extract from the first edition Ordnance Survey maps as well. So this is this first survey of Ireland for the Cavan maps published in 1836. So we get this representation of places within these. This place we're going to come back to later on the right-hand side, this townland called Shancorn, or it's, I suppose the correct pronunciation of it is Shancorn, but we refer to it as Shancorn, which when you look on the Loganum website, we see there that it's relating to an old heap of stones. But these townlands, and as you know, there's 60,000 odd of these, each of them are very much like little cultural reservoirs. We can find out so much about who we are, where we've come from, the places, the people that have influenced these places by looking at these individual units. John Hewitt, in his poem, The Ulster Names, talked about the significance of those names Duffy talks about the names creating landscapes. So the personality of places, the familial connections between families and certain names. So you think about the Bradys of Arva in Cavan, or this connection of families to particular places. How names are so evocative to us. So when you say Armagh, Hewitt writes, I see the hill, the two tall spires, or the square low tower. But what I really want to focus in on is this sense of the minor place names. So those other names that we had seen on the Ordnance Survey maps, these are the administrative names, these are the official names. This is what the state kind of sees as being the official name. These minor names are a little bit different. So these are the names that are given to features by those people who have lived in these areas, who have worked the lands, who have been part and parcel of these places, who know these places very intimately. Their ancestors, and previous generations, and so on. So there are many categories. I have just listed out some of them here that I just want to talk very briefly about. And I suppose most of them manifest themselves in that spoken word. Most of them manifest themselves orally. Very few of these have been committed to paper, to the map, in the same way as those administrative names have been recorded. They're significant. Why are we worried about these names? And I suppose the worry or our concern or our interest with the names is really around the significance of them. They are very much, I would argue, part of our intangible cultural heritage. UNESCO defines our intangible cultural heritage as being practices, expressions, knowledge that communities, groups, and even sometimes individuals recognise as part of their cultural heritage. So these expressions, this knowledge is really, really significant as part of our cultural heritage. So they also provide us with these very significant insights into the local geographies of place. They also give us insights into the use of language, what language is being used to describe these places as well. And I think collectively, I suppose, there's also that sense of the appreciation of place. I noticed in Martha's presentation, the second project I think that your group was involved with was that one on the place names. And I think that recognition and that kind of appreciation and the recording of that is really important in terms of, again, for us being able to appreciate our places. Last week I was at a conference and I was speaking to somebody who's from the other end of geography, from the environmental physical side, the climate change side of geography, and he mentioned to me that he had been bitten by what he described as the local history bug. I asked him had he been to the National Library. He confessed he had been to the National Library, so I said it was very serious. He's definitely bitten by the bug. And he said his concern is around environment, around climate change and so on. And he said that really it's our own appreciation of places that's going to kind of inform our concern for the environment. The events of other places, that's not going to impact us. It's going to be the concern for our own places. So that sense of appreciation of place as well. So there are various categories. So the first one, I suppose, probably the most popular minor place name, I would say, perhaps within Ireland, is that of the field name. This is the most pervasive component within the landscape. These are just some of the really tremendous projects that have taken place so far in Kilkenny and Meath, Westmeath, and there are lots of other local projects as well. But again, these field names reflect intimacy. They reflect intimacy of the farmers who have sustained engagement with these lands as the source of their livelihood over time. The amount of time that is spent in a field, the amount of effort that is put within it. Duffy talks about these names are evidence of generations of the manhandling of landscape. When toil, work, the physicality of farming meant that you were in the field, on your land, to a much more sustained way, rather than, as he has said, sort of our tractored, our mechanicized landscapes of today. So there are many records of these, and the names themselves, I suppose, reflect things like the shape of fields, the locations where they are, the quality of land that you might find in that particular field as well, what usage it's been put to, and the names of those who have perhaps owned that land as well. So you're back in Shancorn, you're back in Cavan, you're back in the cherry territory here. So my brother has very kindly informed me that these are the names of the fields that are on the farm at home. So there's all sorts of names here. There's shapes. The shapes of fields come into play. So we talk about the square meadows. We talk about the three corners, the round hill. And when you're on this, I suppose the thing that maybe doesn't come through very well from this map is the fact that this is a drumlin, and when you're on the round hill, you know you're on the round hill. We have previous owners listed here, so we have people like the Elliots, or the Elliots, as we would refer to them as, the Wallaces. They are meadows down the front. The Wallaces don't appear in the 19th century record at all, so they must be even earlier. The Elliots, they're there up until the turn of the 20th century. The location, so one field, in the name of one field in relation to another. So the field over the bog, the field next the commons. Usage, the bean field or the bain field. There's the ass's bottom, the calf park, the bull's field, the orchard, Lucy's garden. This is where the horse was kept. So Lucy was the horse. The rotten end, I can't imagine why they've got the rotten end, but it must be the drinking place. This is for the cattle. And again, this intimacy of knowledge of where do you find water for your cattle. We had this at the same conference where I met that man last week, at this discussion, and my colleague actually here, Arlene Crampsey, who's with the Oral History Network, is involved with droughts. Arlene was talking about droughts and so on, but where do people know certain things are? So this was for the cattle and their watering hole. And this, the piss pot, he tells me, is the fact that it always seemed to rain when they mowed it for hay. So that's where that particular name, this one here, actually for this particular field here. So these are just, I suppose, why this need, the need for this level of detail. These names they were not all applied at once. These are probably succession upon year or generation upon generation who have named this place. I must ask my brother what are his kids' references to these fields now. I think they just refer to it as Shancorn. I don't think they have that sense of these fields any longer. But it was really important in the past, before phones, when I think even of in the 1980s of my own childhood, where were you when you left? Where, my father would say, where was he going? So that during the day you might have a sense where he was on the farm. I suppose the coming together of neighbours to help out. Where are they to go to help out? So all of this fine, intimate detail, these names were important. Along the coast again, of course, the coastal names are really significant, and we've seen those again in the Mahari example. We have 7,500 kilometres of coastline. Think about Tim Robinson's mapping of the coastline and the names that he has recorded. Think about how individual stacks, rocks, cliffs, peninsulas, headlands, how each of these have distinctive names, the bays. And of course, that's all to do, again, as the farmers have their intimacy with the landscape, so the fishermen, those who live along the coast, need that exact same intimacy as well. And what you notice here, while all the names in Cavan are in English, you'll notice here this example from Teelan in Donegal, which was a small project that we were involved with, where all of the names there are within the Irish language. Water, of course, wells were key up until the 1960s, where there were no group water schemes, there were no massive schemes in rural Ireland. So the well was important, key asset, frequently used to name the field where it was found as well. This is the little well where my grandparents got their water from. And I remember walking there in the 1980s, and lots of the other neighbours coming in cars and so on to get buckets of water for drinking water. This was Murdy's well, or Jack's well, and that was just named after the guy who looked after it. So this sense of those minor names, of course, those other really significant spiritual sites as well. If we think a little bit about infrastructure in terms of roads, again, vast road network across Ireland, all numbered, but many of them have names as well. So the famous Yellow Road in Belturbet, named after the surface that it had when it was composed of yellow gravel and sandstone, so it kind of gave a yellowy hue, and that name stuck with that place, and it's kind of the official sort of name for it now as well. But on that previous map, this little stretch of road along by here, this was called Kemp's Brae, and it's only a very small bit of the road, but again, the family who are in this house are called the Kemps. The Kemps are there in the 1911 census, and that same sense of giving whoever you're speaking to an exact location. So it happened at Kemp's Brae or Kemp's Corner. This significance there as well. What we have here as well is relation to roads, crossroads. So these are some examples from the Metal Loganum website, and I'll talk a wee bit about that in a second. But Riley's Cross in Monaghan, again, places that had probably greater significance than in the past than today. And then, of course, the lovely Waterways Ireland map showing the bridges along the canals. So again, names, Mulhall's Bridge shown there. Archaeologically, ring forts, again, there's 60,000 forts in Ireland. Each of them has a name. Frequently, the townland name is used. Others, we don't have names on them. So this little example from Clover Hill again, we have a fort marked to the north. So this fort is referred locally as Drumard. So that's pretty good, a high hill, very innovative naming in Cavan. But there's a fort then which isn't actually marked on the Ordnance Survey here on this map, but we do see it in the archaeology map, and this one's the Orchard Fort. So again, these minor names and the significance of knowing a little bit about those. One of the last categories is those place names associated with historical events. So a few here. The Bloody Pass. This was a location along the River Erne. Battle there in July 1689. the Williamite forces attacked the Jacobites who were heading for Enniskillen, so a massive slaughter of people. But that sense of the bloody pass. The other location there on the right-hand side is something that, if I said it in my Cavan accent, we'd call it the One Tree. So it's like the One Tree. But the One Tree, again, a landmark, now gone, as you can see there. The location is probably still referred to as the One Tree, but Owen Roe O'Neill was said to have rallied his troops here in 1649. Lisa O'Neill, the musician, has a reference to the One Tree in one of her songs as well. As I said to somebody earlier on when we were just having a chat at coffee, I said sometimes our focus on minor place names, we're inclined to think of these being purely rural, something that's a rural phenomena. But we have to be aware, and you guys are aware, that the urban environment, there are lots of minor place names associated with the urban environment as well. So that's, again, I think that intimacy with places, with junctions, with parts of towns, with particular sites within towns, all of these. And this example, again, from the Metal Loganum website, shows us what the NS Tidy Towns have been able to do. Just in the last 2 minutes or so, I just want to tell you a little bit about a project that the Heritage Council has funded through New Foundations in 2024. So this project is the project that myself and Brian O'Rahilly are working on in terms of promoting and facilitating a citizen humanities approach in safeguarding minor place names as part of our cultural heritage. This is, of course, a time-sensitive task, because I think we are all probably aware of, and we all probably have those regrets of not having spoken to people. I'm sorry that I didn't speak to somebody before they've departed. So there's a relatively time-sensitive nature to this. And what we are aiming to do with it is to really put together a little guide that's going to say something about the significance of place names. Why are we interested? What's the importance of them? And then run a number of workshops whereby we're going to be able to harness and link in with our local authority heritage officers to more or less equip them and enthuse them with the skills and with the kind of the knowledge and so on that will allow them to help and assist local groups and individuals who are interested in recording minor place names. So we're going to use this existing website. We have an existing website, the Metal Loganum, and we are kind of basing it around this idea of citizen humanities. So you'll have heard of citizen science, where people are involved with water testing or some other broader sort of experiments. The citizen humanities is just that sense of sharing knowledge that people have. So it's opening up. It's an attempt to kind of democratize the collection of minor place names, because some of those examples that we looked at earlier on, and that lovely example that Angus Finnegan is leading in Westmeath, the Meath place names or field names project, the Louth, there's been experts involved with lots of those. What then if where we just have one or two people who have knowledge, we'd like to record that knowledge so that it can be safeguarded and so on as well. So just to show to you very quickly, there's a new version, just to say there's a new version of Metal Loganum being established. So there's the Loganum website that many of you will be familiar with, Loganum, the official spelling of a name, the evolution of the spelling of that name through time. And then there's Metal Loganum, which has been established since 2016. We are creating a new version for this particular project, and it's relatively simple. I base simplicity on my own ability to do things. If I can do it, then I can say anybody can do it. You create yourself a little profile, and then you can start adding places to it. So even in the vicinity of Tullamore here, this is what we have on the top screen there, just when I did a grab the other day. So there's pockets where people have come in and really concentrated on recording names, but there's lots of the country, and this is the issue. There's lots of the country where there are blanks on this map. Individually, people might be a little bit dismissive of these names and say, well, sure, is it important, Jonathan, that you go on there and tell us about the Priest's Bog or Hollow's Bottom in Cavan? Maybe not. No, maybe not. But it's when we have this gathered together collectively as a national database that the significance of this will really come to the fore. People will start to be able to see, well, where else do we have these names? You can search for patterns and so on coming through. So the requirements for engaging with this are a computer, interest, that knowledge, which, as I said at the start, we all have, and then that recording of it. The new version will have other dimensions to it, but at the moment, the requirements are pretty basic. We ask you for the place name in Irish, how to pronounce it in Irish, if it's in Irish, the place name in English, so whichever language you want to record it in. And we're not placing maybe a significance on Irish or English, we just want the name and how it's pronounced in either of those languages. And then a little bit about the type of place name it is and the source of information. So normally the source of information is local knowledge, what people have themselves as well. So just to say, we are planning to have our guide and our workshops organised with the various heritage officers across the local authorities by early autumn. We're hoping, we're kind of aiming for August as a point for that. So we will have 4 or 5 workshops across the country where we will have one of our heritage officers hosting a workshop for neighbouring heritage officers and groups or representatives from groups who might be interested in naming or broadly within heritage. Hopefully, or perhaps maybe from after listening to the event or the talk today, maybe you can think a little bit about an event for Heritage Week that'll encompass something around minor place names. And also, I think, even for you to engage yourself and to think a little bit about what do I know, what can I add to this website from my own knowledge as well. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you.